Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is the second time I'm making this video because the first time I got through my entire video and then realized I didn't hit the record button because it's Sunday and I should probably be relaxing and not making a YouTube video, but here we are. Anyway, what I do want to talk about today is what do you do when your writing routine starts to feel a bit stale? How do you inject that sense of playfulness and wonder back into a writing routine when everything just starts to feel a bit blah? Now, if you can cast your mind back to when you first learned how to write, I can imagine that you probably felt pretty overwhelmed because we're not exactly starved for information and there is just so much you need to learn when you're first starting out. Craft alone is such an incredibly dense and rich topic. You need to learn how dialogue works, how prose, characterization, the importance of setting, the time, all of that sort of stuff. Then you also need to look into the publishing industry. Whether you go traditional or whether you go indie, both need an incredible amount of research before you can make your decision. And then of course you need to learn about marketing. How do you create a website? What's this whole author platform thing? How do you create content that people actually want? When you're first starting out, the volume of information that is out there is totally overwhelming. There's writing blogs, there's online membership communities, tutorials, online courses, podcasts, everything. At the same time that you're incredibly aware of your own ignorance, you're also kind of excited because you're learning something new, and there's something really thrilling about the novelty of doing something new. Naturally, over time, you'll start developing your own writing routine, and then through that, you'll develop new confidence, and you'll probably commit to some kind of larger writing project, whether that be a short story, a novella, a novel, or even a screenplay. As your confidence starts to grow, you'll probably start getting some articles published. Maybe you'll even finish that book and then you'll get that published. As the years roll on, you'll start to see yourself as a true craftsman, someone who has mastered their craft, as much as any of us can master our craft. Maybe you'll start to become too comfortable with writing, and eventually things start to feel a little bit stale. That sense of exploration and wonder, that sense of unknown, that there is further for you to learn and develop, starts to kind of fade away. So what do you do when that begins to happen? How do you reanimate the form of your writing routine? How do you make writing fun again? One of the best ways to make writing fun again is to actually dedicate some time to play. You're probably aware that many authors seem to have these funny little rituals that they perform before they sit down to write. Some writers might send a prayer to the muse, or maybe they take a few deep breaths to try and shift into that mindset, and other people might read a few pages of a beloved book. If your writing desk is starting to feel as oppressive as an office cubicle, then I urge you to please dedicate some time to playful writing. I recommend carving out 15 minutes before your writing session begins and dedicate that time to writing a piece of flash fiction or a poem. You could also work on a longer form, maybe a novella that you're writing for fun or a novel that you're writing for fun. But here's the thing, you have to genuinely go in with the mindset that you are writing something that no one else is gonna see. We need to alleviate the pressure of our writing. Instead of sitting down with the thought that I'm going to write something really beautiful or poetic and then I'm going to post it on Instagram, no. The whole intention here is that you're writing something for you first. You're creating art for art's sake. And by doing this, you're reminding yourself that you are in fact creating art and you're not saving lives. Though sometimes art does save lives. If you can think back to when you were first learning how to write, chances are it was difficult and challenging, but it was probably also fun. And maybe you felt this kind of satisfaction and pride in the work that you were producing. Maybe you really enjoyed that intellectual stimulation and that sense of it didn't really matter. This is what you want to reintroduce back into your writing routine. That sense that the writing isn't precious and that you can write something that's kind of crap and then move on. The best thing about this practice is that you're carving out the time to make art for yourself first before you start making art for someone else. Another thing you can do is go on an artist date. Now, you may have heard of this concept if you've read Julia Cameron's famous book, The Artist's Way. And if you have, then feel free to skip ahead, just as long as you actually take yourself out on an artist date. Now, if you aren't familiar with the term artist date, basically it just means that you take yourself out to do something that is enchanting, whimsical, or fun. And ideally, you do it once a week. An artist date should be something that is playful, no pressure. It's supposed to be inspiring and refuel your creative well. I should say fill your creative well. You don't want to refuel your creative well. So here's some examples of things that can get you inspired. You could try going out for the afternoon with your phone or an actual camera if you have one and take photographs of things that inspire you. Maybe you could take an art class or a sewing class or a pottery class, any kind of class. You could go to the museum or an art gallery, especially if they have an exhibition on that's really enticing. You could go see a play or a musical. You could try being a tourist in your own town by going to a suburb you've never been to or exploring a park that's always been on your radar but you've never made the time to go visit. You can also go and do a road trip to one of the surrounding towns or go into the city and have a day exploring markets or something like that. Now, an artist date doesn't have to be artistic. You just need to do something that excites you. Now, one of the best and cheapest ways to re-inspire yourself is to just get back into reading. I know this seems like an incredibly basic tip, but it's true. When you start reading more, you'll naturally become more excited about writing, because the reason why you became a writer is because you loved reading. Now, you could work on trying to increase the amount you read in general, but what I would recommend is actually just spending 10 or 20 minutes before you sit down to write to read something that's inspiring. Now, me personally, I would not be reading a new book during that time. I would probably go back and reread an old favorite or something else that I find particularly inspiring. Now, please know we're all different and we're all different every day, so something that inspires you on Monday may feel kind of flat on Tuesday. Now, I would recommend reading a few pages of a book that you really admire or whose author's style you're trying to emulate. You could also try doing some writing exercises using a book such as Natalie Goldberg's Wild Mind or Writing Through the Bone. One day you might prefer to read a couple of poems. Another day you might find it more inspiring to read a chapter from a memoir. Another thing you can do is experiment with listening, watching, or reading author interviews. Hearing other writers speak about their writing routines, their creative practices, or what's going on in their mind when they're creating their work is one of the best ways to inspire yourself to create your own work. Like any relationship, we need to put mindful effort into our writing in order to keep those routines lively, exciting, and interesting. The last thing you want is for your writing desk to become the same kind of hell that your office cubicle desk used to be. It's totally normal for a writing routine to become kind of stale over time, but with just a little bit of mindful effort, you can reanimate that form and you can fall back in love with writing again. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What do you do when your writing routine starts to feel a bit stale or you just feel kind of uninterested in writing? How do you get yourself back in the seat and creating? I'd love to know. So leave a comment below. Now, if you'd like even more writing advice, you can head to taraeast.com. While you're there, be sure to join up for my email newsletter. When you do, I'll send you a downloadable link to my cheat sheet, The 7 Ways to Stay Motivated as a Writer. My debut novel, Every Time He Dies, is available everywhere. All the links are below. You can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you so much for watching again, guys, and I'll see you next week. Now go do some writing.